Claude Pro subscription users just got access to Opus 4.5. That's me. That's the $20 a month plan. And I'm putting it to the test with a task that kind of broke Gemini CLI. I have a simple app that needs to go to production, but two things are missing: authentication and persistence. I think Firebase is my answer, but the last time I tried this migration, it was kind of a mess. It did end up working in the end, but Gemini kind of broke the major functionality of the app before it got there. Today, we'll see if Claude Code can handle what Gemini couldn't, and specifically whether it can preserve the one feature that seems to keep breaking: drag and drop. Let's go take a look. So here's the app I'm working with. It's just supposed to be a simple app to keep track of ideas for apps that I want to build. I can quickly enter a new idea for an app I might have. I can add some notes and save it. And then the important thing is I want to be able to drag these around, reorder them, create folders, and drag ideas into and out of the folder. So I want to preserve all that, but I also need to add authentication and persistence across browsers because I'm hoping to have this on my phone, but of course I want to be able to sync with my desktop. I did try to do this in Gemini CLI because they have this cool Firebase extension, and I thought, they're all Google products. Maybe it would just play together really nicely. It didn't really go so well. Unfortunately, while it did do a pretty good job of getting Firebase installed and authentication up and running, it completely broke the drag and drop functionality. For a while, I couldn't even drag anything, and then I couldn't move anything into or out of a folder. It was just kind of a mess. So since I just got access to Claude Opus 4.5, I thought this would be a really good test and see how does Claude handle Firebase migration. But because it was so difficult last time, before I even open Claude Code, I want to give it the best possible chance. So I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. This time I'm starting outside of the code base. I'm going to ask Claude to create a PRD before it even looks at the code. I want to give it an outline of the project that I have and what I'm looking for so it can create an unopinionated by code PRD that hopefully then I can hand off to Claude Code to complete the coding tasks. So I basically told Claude that I need a PRD. I've got this simple little app for ideas. I need drag and drop. I need to migrate it to Firebase because that's got the functionality that I want. Can you create a PRD for me? And it immediately said, since this is a PRD and it's going to be handed off to Claude Code, a markdown file would be more appropriate, which is exactly right. Claude and all of the CLI tools handle markdown files really, really well. So I got this really nice project requirement document, PRD, for the Firebase migration. And it spelled out everything that I had told it: the target architecture, a whole bunch of requirements, and then the success criteria. So I kind of skimmed over this and it looked pretty good to me, so I handed this off to Claude Code. Over here in this directory, I do have my project checked out and I'm on a new branch to make sure that I don't accidentally pollute my main working app over on main. So I did a Claude init, and then I said I need to migrate this project over to Firebase because I need a Google sign-in and syncing across browsers. There's a PRD in this directory that should outline the requirements. Can you plan a migration strategy? And I did have planning mode on. I do like to start Claude Code in planning mode so that it doesn't just start coding until it has given itself a proper plan of attack. So a couple new, very cool things in Claude Code. I don't know when they added this. I have been playing exclusively in Anti-Gravity and Gemini for the last several weeks, so I am not sure when this happened, but once it's got its plan together, it has this series of questions and you can scroll through it with the side arrows. I had not seen this before and I really quite like it. The second thing that was really important, the very first thing that it said is, the PRD lists authentication as out of scope, but you mentioned needing Google sign-in. Should I include Firebase authentication with Google sign-in? Wait, what? That was like my whole point of this migration. Did I forget to mention that in my PRD? So I need a PRD, a simple app. I'm thinking about migrating this to Firebase. Oh, yeah. So I never actually said why I'm thinking about migrating to Firebase. I think I've explained this to so many different AI tools over the last week that I completely lost track of what I was doing here. Yeah, my whole point is I need Google sign-in and I want it to have persistence. That was not in my PRD. So in this case, Claude Code actually saved me from myself, which I will say is not an uncommon occurrence. So yes, I do want to include auth. What's next? Folder delete. When a folder is deleted, what should happen to the ideas inside it? Ooh, that's a good question. I think all the contents should be deleted, but I would like the user to be notified that there are ideas in the folder and ask them for verification that they want to delete the folder and everything inside of it. Firebase setup. Do you already have a Firebase project setup, or should I include setup instructions? Yeah, so I definitely want Claude Code to walk me through this, or better yet, do everything it can on its own without my intervention. All right, now it's giving me a chance to review my answers, something I should have done in the PRD. Yep, looks good. Great, so the scope now includes Firebase auth with Google sign-in, folder deletion with confirmation, Firebase project creation using CLI tools. That's great. I am very curious to see. I think there's a Firebase CLI that can be installed, and I think Claude should be able to use it. All right, so Claude thought for a while and came back with its plan. As always, Claude has done a really nice job laying out what it's planning on doing. There's an overview with key requirements. Then it's got all the Firebase project setup that needs to happen, all the tools that need to be installed, the environment variables that need to be set up, etc., etc. You ready to start implementing? I said, yep, go ahead. So how did it do? Well, one of the things I was really happy to see, it looked for a bunch of linting errors. And I have to say, this is where Claude has really fallen down on the job in the past. It seems like every time I try to deploy anything to Vercel, there is another level of lint checking that's going on up there. And just at that point, when I thought I was done and ready to deploy, I would have to come back and spend sometimes another 2 hours with Claude trying to get rid of this lint, which in my opinion should not be there in the first place. It's pretty funny because it even says the ES lint rule is quite strict. Let me refactor to use a pattern that avoids. Well, why is it not taking this into account? Why are you writing it like this in the first place? And then in the usual excellent Claude fashion, it's giving me a list of steps that I need to go do that it can't do. So I know I do need to do some of these manually, but I am curious both how much help can it give me along the way, and or can it do some of this on its own? All right, step 1, create a Firebase project. I do know that I need to go do that. So let's take care of that. So I'm going to pause just for a second here because I need to give my project a name, but I have a question about this. Now, I have a lot of questions about a lot of things when I'm working on a project like this. Hey, so I am filming a video for YouTube and I'm showing a migration using Firebase. Is that project name something that I need to keep private at all costs? Or is that something I can expose to an entire world of YouTube viewers? Short version, you're fine showing the Firebase project name, just don't show the project ID, API keys. Awesome. So this is one of my biggest helpers is anything I don't understand or think that I understand, but no, I don't really understand, just go ask because the answers are all just right there. Let's call this app idea Claude. Awesome. Get started. Thank you very much, Claude. Just that simple. Google authorization is enabled. Okay, I've registered the web app. Where would I get my Firebase config values? I didn't do this in Gemini, so is this something Claude can do? All right, so that was successful. I did ask if there was a CLI that Claude could use to get this information, and it did say, oh yeah, there's a Firebase CLI I can use. Let me install that, go get the information. I should have thought to ask for that earlier. I know Gemini did install the Firebase CLI at one point. I think that might have either been part of the Firebase extension that it had, or possibly Google is just tuned to run with other Google products a little bit more efficiently. I don't know. All right, Firestore database, create database. How do I create a Firestore database? And can you create that database for me? Yes, I can create it via CLI. Great, let's just have you do that. You definitely want Claude to do as much of the work as is possible. All right, click enable on that page. Says it's enabled, but I don't see anywhere to click enable. You know what? This is not a thing that I know. It's a thing that Claude knows. until there was nothing to click to enable it. Does it look like it's enabled? Just keep asking your CLI questions. If it tells you to do something, you throw it right back at it and say, does that look right? Do you know anything about this? I don't think I understand. Yep, shows status enabled. Oh, okay. My limit just got reached. Resets at 5 o'clock my time, which is an hour and a half. I mean, that's kind of telling right there. I burned through a lot of tokens. Gemini was able to get almost all the way through the very last step, and then it ran out of pro model usage. So it did force me to bump back down to the next model, maybe even to the 2.5 Lite model, but it did allow me to continue working. So it was able to get through the entire project in some fashion. I will say, Claude Code, it looks like I've hit a hard limit, and I can either pay more or wait an hour and a half. Claude, that's actually kind of a bummer. All right, let's switch to extra usage. All right, and we are back in business, I think. Let's see what kind of damage we can do. This is like a whole little side quest I did not expect to be going down today. Okay, I did that wrong. All right, Firebase deploy, yes. I had some back and forth with Claude because there were some rules that needed to be enabled in Firebase. Who has access to it? It gave me several variations of what to copy and paste into here, and they kept erroring out. I did actually end up taking the rules that I had from my Gemini version of this project and just copied and pasted them into here. I did get something up and running, I believe. All right, the moment of truth. What you got for me, Claude? Sign in with Google. Sign in. Yes. That's less promising. Ooh, okay. That took quite a while to load. I'm going to assume it was because it was the initial startup and migration, I guess. Let's try it out. Okay. To create that. All right. Can I drag stuff in? Yes. Can I drag stuff out? All right. This is where the Gemini project failed immediately. I could not drag anything. I couldn't reorder things. I certainly couldn't drag it into folders. So this is very good news. All right. That's a success. Claude Code. Every time I try to walk away from you, I always end up coming back, and I come back amazed at what has changed and what's been upgraded and how good it is. It gets me every single time, and this time was no different. I've been using Gemini and anti-gravity because I was really impressed with the anti-gravity IDE and some of the features that it added. So I really have been wanting to use and love Gemini. But when I tried this same project in Gemini, it looped over and over and over, had a bunch of error messages, and in the end came up with an app that worked with Firebase, but basically broke all the drag and drop functionality. So I was not sure if that was Gemini or if that was some weird function of the Firebase migration. But clearly it's not, because this was almost flawless. So one of the things that impressed me about Gemini was its Claude-like communication style. But the difference is Claude tells me what it's going to do, and then the code just works. So, I mean, in the end, that's pretty hard to walk away from. Gemini, I tried hard to be won over by you, but in the end, Claude is just so good, and it keeps adding upgrades. It added that planning questioning session where you can kind of tab sideways. That I found that super impressive. I do wish I had thought to ask Claude Code earlier if there were tools it could use to help me with the Firebase migration. I need to start asking far more often, hey, is there a tool out there for this? Is there an MCP server? Is there something you know about that could be installed that would help this process go more smoothly? So many of these pieces are manual intervention that does not need to be me manually intervening. If there's a tool out there, I need to remember to ask Claude a lot more often, what else is available to help this process along? But overall, I have to say, Claude Code is the clear, hands down winner here. I am using the $20 a month Claude Code account, which just got access to Opus 4.5. And I did have to go in and add just a little bit of extra money into that account since I ran out of tokens. Oh, and the actual outcome for the cost, it was $5.39 to use I think I ended up going through the API. So once again, it just shows subscription is a great deal. All right, that's it for today. I hope you found this helpful or at least informative. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.